The divorce was not my idea. I didn't want it in any shape, form, or fashion.
That's Reba McEntire opening up about her divorce from Narvel Blackstock. The pair was married for 26 years, and she admits it was hard.
For years, she smiled on stage while singing about love, loss, and strength. But behind the bright lights and awards was a story she never told out loud. Now at 70, Reba McEntire is done keeping quiet. Some moments shaped her path, choices that changed everything, and people she trusted who left lasting scars. One of them stood in her way long before fame ever came. Another stayed close for decades. These were not strangers passing by. They were part of her world, and what happened behind the scenes may reveal a side few ever knew. Number 5. Narvel Blackstock. When Narvel Blackstock came into Reba's life, it felt like everything was finally lining up the way it should. He was not just someone she loved, but someone who truly believed in what she could become. As her manager, he helped guide her through some of the biggest years of her career. Their relationship grew out of trust, shared plans, and long hours spent building something together behind the scenes. For the first time, it felt like she had a partner who wanted her to shine just as much as she did. On the details that allowed her to focus on the details that allowed her to focus on the stage. He stood beside her not just in business meetings, but in everyday life as well. The bond between them seemed strong because it was built on both personal love and shared goals. It gave Reba the sense that she no longer had to fight every battle alone. For years, they worked as a team. While she performed on stage, he handled the plans behind the scenes that kept everything moving forward. Their marriage lasted 26 years, and during that time, they built an empire that reached far beyond music. It included television, touring, and other ventures that expanded her presence across the entertainment world. Together, they made decisions that helped shape her future and bring new opportunities into her life. To outsiders, it looked like the perfect balance between career and family. They appeared steady and united in both love and work. Because of how much they had built together, she trusted him completely. He was not just her husband, but also the man managing her career and helping shape her path forward. She believed that the life they shared was steady and safe, after everything she had been through before. The idea that it could suddenly change was not something she ever expected to face. The unexpected conclusion of their marriage, which took place in 2015, created a surprising experience for everyone involved. The split between the couple after their extended relationship brought sudden and deep emotional distress. Reba failed to foresee the event that caused her to struggle with understanding how a long-lasting relationship had suddenly ended. The man who used to provide her with both emotional support and life direction had disappeared from her life. Blindsided by how everything unfolded. They experienced an emotional rupture that affected both their personal relationship and their professional partnership. The loss of her partnership brought her to a situation that forced her to confront unexpected circumstances that differed from her long-held expectations. People who knew her well claimed that the breakup destroyed her romantic relationship with her partner. For 3 decades, she had shared her life with him both in public and private settings. The experience of betrayal created internal distress, which the person did not show to others. The incident reopened previous wounds that she believed had fully healed and made her doubt the relationship's stability that they had built through their dedicated effort. She needed to discover how to continue her life after her partner, who assisted her in making major life choices, had died. The situation required her to cope with personal grief while experiencing alterations in how her professional duties would be handled from that point onward. She now had to tackle new difficulties that emerged after her secure future transformed into an unknown path that required her to travel alone. Narvel Blackstock became a reminder that even strong bonds can break without warning. Their relationship, which depended on loyalty and mutual achievements, made it difficult for her to deal with his absence. She needed to develop her ability to be independent again after spending many years with her partner. The experience taught her that trust relationships can shift when someone you trusted as your closest friend decides to leave. She developed methods to move forward after experiencing doubt and loss during various life periods. This chapter required her to face it alone. Yet she must complete it, because it represents her next stage of life. That chapter was painful, but the next one brought a different kind of sting. Number 4. Rival male country singer. By the late 1980s and early 1990s, Reba was no longer trying to earn a place in country music, and her name had become a regular part of award shows and major events in Nashville. Crowds showed up knowing her songs by heart, and radio stations played her voice daily. But with that kind of success came attention from people who were not always cheering her on. Among them was a fellow country singer who was respected in his own right, but quietly bitter about how quickly her career had grown. To her face, he acted polite. He smiled at events, shook hands backstage, and spoke kindly when cameras were nearby. In public, he played the part expected in a close industry where appearances mattered. Behind the scenes, however, it was a very different story. He whispered comments to reporters and questioned whether her success was real or simply the result of clever marketing. In private conversations, he belittled her artistry and suggested that her image mattered more than her talent. The rumors moved through the industry faster than she expected, reaching her ears again and again. Reba kept her anger quiet for years. Nashville was a place where open conflict could damage more than just feelings. It could affect bookings, radio play, and relationships with people who held power over careers. Still, the sting of his words stayed with her. It hurt to know that someone within the same field saw her as an outsider in what many still believed was a man's world. Instead of respect, he treated her rise as something that needed to be explained away, as if her success could not simply be earned. The rivalry never turned into a public fight, but the tension was always present. Each time she released a new song or stepped onto a bigger stage, she knew there were voices behind the curtain waiting to question her place. She would hear about jokes made at her expense, or remarks shared in interviews that seemed harmless on the surface but carried deeper meaning. He became a symbol of the quiet resistance she faced from those who did not believe a woman should lead the charts or command such attention. A handshake between two people led to their initial contact, which eventually resulted in their complete silence. The handshake between them created a situation that their subsequent greeting maintained, yet their actual relationship remained hidden. Reba recognized that rivalries existed, which produced quieter competition than others. The two parties established their conflict through secret insults that they exchanged during their silent times. His presence showed her that people who achieved success usually faced envy from unexpected sources. The plane crash that happened in 1991 and slayed multiple band members caused her more intense suffering than earlier experiences. The moment represented her most extreme dark period throughout her life. He made unempathetic comments about her grief process after she lost multiple work colleagues whom she saw every night. He doubted her ability to maintain her performance standards because he wanted to know if she could handle the same work without her musical partners, who had developed her sound. Reba saw their relationship as more than a competition between them. It felt wrong to express doubts because she faced a period when she needed to develop her personal power. She detested how people used unfortunate events to create rumors and make predictions about future events. The idea that someone would use such a moment to suggest she was weaker only added to the pain she was carrying. The experience showed her that certain individuals used her moments of grief to assess when she would no longer succeed. She dedicated herself to her tasks instead of speaking about the rumors that surrounded her. She created new music to express her sadness, which resulted in songs that described her experiences with survival and loss. Her following albums helped her develop as an artist, while they demonstrated her ability to create music from her internal strength instead of relying on external support. The complete sequence of her achievements served as a subtle answer to those who believed she would vanish after her personal losses. She returned to the stage while understanding that her uncertainties would remain for some time. Her performances demonstrated that her voice had maintained its powerful quality. The audience showed their support for her future success through their standing ovations. The rival's statements became ineffective because her music continued to touch fans who understood her personal journey. She would still remember how those comments felt during that time. The rival never needed to be named because his attitude represented something larger than one man. He stood for every doubt cast on her ability to endure. She established his permanent position in her thoughts by showing him and the entire music industry that she would not let anyone take her place. Number 3. Nashville Record Executive. When Reba first arrived in Nashville in the mid-1970s, she stepped into a world that felt nothing like the open plains she grew up on. Back home, life had been simple and honest, shaped by ranch work and rodeo arenas. Nashville was different. It was filled with smoky offices, quiet meetings, and men who held all the power behind closed doors. She had the voice people noticed right away, but she did not have control over what came next. After signing her first record deal in 1975, she believed her path was finally opening. Instead, she quickly learned that the system had plans for her that did not match the dreams she had carried from Oklahoma. The same machine that promised to lift her also began shaping her into something she did not fully recognize. One man in particular became the face of that control. He was a record executive who believed he knew exactly what kind of artist she should be. To him, she was not a storyteller or a performer with something to say. She was a product that could be molded and sold. He told her what songs to record, how she should dress, how she should smile for photos, and even how she should sound on stage. When she spoke about wanting to record ballads and songs with deeper meaning, he dismissed the idea without much thought. He said audiences wanted simple songs that were easy to sell and that anything more would be a risk they could not afford. He often reminded her that she was replaceable. In his eyes, there were plenty of small-town girls with good voices waiting in line for the same chance. If she did not follow the rules, someone else would step in without hesitation. That thought stayed with her every time she walked into a recording studio. It made her feel small in a place where she hoped to grow. The pressure to stay quiet and obedient began to weigh on her. She hated knowing that someone with so much control over her future wanted her to fit into a narrow box that did not match who she really was. Pushed her toward material that sounded like everything else already on the radio. He believed taking risks was too dangerous for a new female artist trying to survive in a male-led industry. Reba felt trapped by contracts and surrounded by men who laughed when she tried to push back against their decisions. They wanted her to be quiet, pretty, and grateful for whatever she was given. The meetings started to experience increasing tension between the participants. She began to speak up more often, asking for songs that suited her voice and told real stories. The audience responded to her by either showing disbelief or remaining quiet. The executive made it clear that ambition from a young woman was not welcome in a business run mostly by men. He expected her to trust his judgment without question. Her voice started to disappear because he tried to lead her toward protected locations. She knew she could be more than what he allowed her to show. But knowing that and proving it were two very different things. By the late 1970s and early 1980s, her patience had started to fade. Reba began to work harder to secure control over her own artistic projects. She searched for ways to record songs that meant something to her, even when it caused friction with the people managing her career. The battle presented difficulties because the people in control of the situation maintained their authority. She faced multiple challenges because her superiors controlled every aspect of her progress. She continued her efforts to discover areas where she could express her authentic self. The singer who studied her, provided songs to her, became aware of every detail, which she reported when she felt something was wrong. She discovered through her industry research that nobody would give her power until she insisted on obtaining it. The executive's words remained in her thoughts, which motivated her to demonstrate her value beyond his perception of her work. The work he needed to complete depended on the doubt he showed, which pushed him to succeed. The release of her album, My Kind of Country, in 1984 created a breakthrough that she had worked to achieve for multiple years. The audience response proved that her authentic voice, which she presented to the world, reached people more effectively than the version they tried to shape through external pressure. The songs she wanted to sing contained valuable stories. The executive who previously advised her to stick to her assigned tasks became the person who represented everything she fought against. Through his words, she established her path toward building complete independence. She revealed her internal feelings about that time period through private conversations. The experience of learning that a powerful person doubted her abilities remained with her for multiple years. The frustration she experienced became the protective barrier that enabled her to advance. The artist learned how to control her creative work, which enabled her to challenge anyone who attempted to limit her abilities. The man who underestimated her stood as a symbol of a system that almost buried her before she had the chance to grow. The system she encountered, she managed to endure. She achieved a level of success that allowed her to control her own direction. If you thought the battles ended in the boardroom, wait until you see what followed at home. Number 2. Charlie Battles. When Reba married Charlie Battles in 1976, she truly believed she had found someone who understood her world. Charlie was a steer wrestler, more than 10 years older than her, and just like her, he came from the rodeo life that had shaped her childhood. To Reba, that meant everything. She didn't have to explain the early mornings, the dust, the long drives, or the hard work that came with growing up around ranches and arenas. Their shared background made her feel safe. He seemed steady and strong, someone who could stand beside her as she slowly began chasing dreams that reached far beyond Oklahoma. In the early years of their marriage, Charlie appeared to support her music career. He traveled with her at times and stayed close as she tried to find her place in Nashville. Reba was still learning how the industry worked, still trying to prove that she belonged in a world where few women were given real control. Having Charlie there gave her comfort. It felt like she had someone who understood where she came from while she stepped into something new and uncertain. But as time went on, things began to shift. Reba's name slowly started to grow, and more people began to take notice of her voice. She spent more time on the road, performing at shows that required her to be away from home for days or even weeks. Success brought late nights, long travel, and crowds of strangers who admired her in ways that were new and overwhelming. While those moments helped build her career, they also created distance between her and Charlie. Over time, his support began to turn into tension. He wanted her home more often and did not like how much of her energy went into performing. Concerts meant time apart, and each tour seemed to stretch the distance between them even further. Reba tried her best to balance both worlds. She hoped she could be a devoted wife while also building something for herself through music. But the demands of her growing career did not slow down, and neither did the strain that was building inside their marriage. Charlie's growing jealousy was triggered by her rising fame. He felt discomfort because she received too much fan attention, and her success brought her greater freedom. He started to doubt her decisions after winning her accomplishments. Their disagreements started whenever she left for her shows, and her absence created building animosity between them. The life she dedicated herself to building created internal disputes throughout their house instead of becoming a source of family pride. Reba continued to stay with him throughout all the challenges that emerged. She considered loyalty to be her most important value, so she would not leave the relationship without serious thought. She dedicated all her energy to the marriage because she believed time would bring positive changes. Their relationship began to show signs of severe damage because her career success reached new heights during the mid-1980s. She achieved national recognition through award wins and nationwide concert sellouts, but her home environment became increasingly tense. The track record of her achievements before 2023 shows that Charlie still believes in his ability to fulfill her professional ambitions. When her most difficult times arrived, Charlie started to reject the aspirations that they had shared with him. He ridiculed her dreams, which she had first described to him during their first encounter. He used to think that her music would allow her to travel anywhere, but people would always see her as a person from a specific location. He believed that her career path, which had previously given her purpose, would turn into a danger that would destroy their future together. Reba faced one of her most difficult decisions, which she had to make between her marital life and their 11 years of marriage. She filed for divorce, knowing it meant letting go of the man she once trusted to stand beside her through everything. She despised their relationship because it created a situation where she needed to achieve success, while he maintained his comfort. The decision brought heartbreak, but it also gave her a sense of freedom she had not felt in years. To exit their relationship provided her a chance to progress, because she could drop the burden that came from his skepticism. The scars remained with her, yet the experience changed her future understanding of interpersonal relationships. Charlie battles showed her that effective backing must develop alongside accomplishment rather than obstruct achievement. Even after the divorce, the lessons from that chapter stayed with her for years. It changed how she viewed support, partnership, and what it truly meant to grow with someone instead of growing apart. She realized that success can place pressure on relationships that once felt unbreakable, especially when one person begins to change in ways the other does not understand. The experience forced her to accept that sometimes love alone is not enough to hold two lives together when their paths begin to move in different directions. It became a turning point that shaped how she would protect both her heart and her future moving forward. You think that was tough? The one at the top of the list shaped everything that followed. Number 1. Clark McEntire. Long before bright lights and sold-out shows, Reba McEntire grew up on the wide Oklahoma plains, where life was built around cattle, dust, and long days of hard work. Her father, Clark McEntire, was a famous steer roper who had won the world championship 3 times. People in the rodeo world respected him, and many feared his strict ways. At home, he ruled with a firm hand, believing that strength mattered more than feelings. For Reba, This meant growing up in a house where praise was rare, and expectations were high, and where dreams were to stay practical and close to the ground. Music was the one thing that gave her a break from ranch life. On long rides to rodeos, she sang in the car with her brother and sisters, learning to blend voices while the road rolled by. Said singing was not real work and warned her that dreams would not pay the bills. His words landed hard on a girl who wanted to make him proud one day when she stood on her own feet in the world. As she grew older, his doubt did not soften. At times, he told her straight that she did not have the talent to make it. Those comments stayed with her, replaying in her mind long after the chores were done. While other girls were cheered on by their fathers, Reba felt pushed aside. She hated the way he brushed off her love for music, as if it were a childish idea that would pass with time. Reba started to work even harder, singing. Singing at small shows and rodeos while studying at Southeastern Oklahoma State University. Each time Clark waved off her goals, she promised herself that she would prove him wrong. She practiced late at night, took any chance to perform, and learned how to stand on a stage without fear. The more he doubted, the more she wanted to succeed. His silence became a challenge she could not ignore, even when she was tired or scared about what might come next in her path toward the future ahead. Now for life. The year 1974 brought her a breakthrough opportunity that altered her entire life. Reba was asked to sing the national anthem at the National Finals Rodeo in Oklahoma City. Red Steagall, the country singer, discovered her singing talent during that performance. For Reba, it felt like a door had opened at last. The pain of her father's disbelief stayed with her when her fame began to develop. She wished he could have been there to say he was proud of the dream he once called foolish in the past when she was small and unsure of herself and her future path ahead. Then, in that moment, the record deals he received and the song's success he achieved did not erase the impact of his first remarks on her. She later admitted that they pushed her harder than any critic ever could. Deep down, she carried a resentment toward the man whose approval she wanted most. Her father did not believe in her when success began to grow around her name. Yet she continued to pursue her goals with hope in her heart for the rest of her life. The way she viewed male authority figures developed through her experience of love and pain during her arrival in Nashville during the mid-1970s. The first demonstration of how someone could love you, yet still restrict your activities, appeared through Clark's vocal performance. She discovered that family doubt created stronger emotional pain than the words which strangers would use against her. Every studio visit became a battle between her need to prove him wrong and her artistic endeavors. The need for his respect never fully disappeared from her life, although she received national applause from audiences who remembered her past work throughout many years. Reba McEntire founded a friendship with her, which later men broke through their aggressive behavior, yet his skepticism became her most painful experience. He showed her that love and anger can coexist together, while the emotional wounds from domestic relationships will continue to exist throughout a person's existence. Reba turned that pain into drive, which created a successful career that needed to silence every negative statement he made about her. She achieved her first success after reaching a point where she no longer required external validation. His skepticism became a fundamental force that shaped her identity as she developed into a person who would live her life based on her own choices throughout her entire life journey. Even as the world began to celebrate her voice, a part of her still remembered those early doubts. That memory stayed with her as both a scar and a source of strength. At 70, Reba McEntire has carried these chapters for years, turning pain into purpose and setbacks into strength. Some stories take a lifetime to say out loud, and this was one of them. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more stories like this. And make sure to check out the next video on your screen, because there's always another story waiting to be told.